Let's go to the 2023 NBA draft. And before we get into the guy that I want to spend most of our time talking about, we have a question here from Evan Glansman in the YouTube comments. Can you touch on Jalen Hood-Schifino during the 2023 NBA draft portion? If the Thompson twins don't pan out, I could see him being the best guard after Scoot. Mark Schindler, how do you feel about that take?
I can't get there right now. I like Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's somebody I've always been interested by, going back to his Montverde tape. I think he's done really good and interesting things this year, but I think it's been more improving on his strengths from where he was at as a high school prospect for me than necessarily getting a ton better as a. I mean, he's definitely improved as an NBA draft prospect in my eyes. He was not a one and done guy for me at all. He's at least made me think about it this year. I still am not there yet. I don't really trust the three. I know he's been taking it more. I want to see a lot more from that. And I think he's somebody, like we were talking about this before we got on camera, but like he's somebody I think about with, if he stays for another year, we're talking more lottery pick next year, potentially, if he continues to make some growths and continuing on the trajectory he's on. But I think he would be much more like sneaking into the back of the first right now, unless some things like really go his way in the combine and as things close out in the tournament. But I don't know how you feel about him right now. Like I like, again, like there are things to be generally very encouraged by, but I still am, just based on trajectory, I'm like, I kind of want to see more moving forward still.
Okay. I disagree with you to an extent.
Okay.
I have him in the top 20 right now. And the reason for that is actually kind of similar to what we talked about with Drew Holiday. Jalen Hood-Schifino is an absolute killer on defense. Like that dude at the point of attack, being 6'6", being able to slide to stay in front of guys, really, really good. His team defense is like a little bit worse. I was talking to an NBA scout on Monday or Tuesday. Monday it would have been. And we kind of talked about how we were a little bit disappointed with his team defense against Purdue, but generally we think he's been pretty good. And I think he's been pretty good as a team defender this year. You add the positive defense with the fact that he's 6'6" and has real size and strength and quickness. He's going to be switchable 1 through 3, I think, pretty easily. Maybe can get down to 4s. I don't think I would project that at this point, but it's not impossible.
Especially because I think he's more 6'5" than 6'6". I think he'll probably end up being there around measurement-wise. But yeah.
Yeah, I would venture he's going to be like 6'5.5". I agree with you. The thing is, though, that you have this real burgeoning skill as a pull-up weapon. Right now, it's from the mid-range. If he can extend that back to the three-point line, and I think there's enough touch to where there is a real ceiling there, and he has good passing ability. I think that he has the ability to execute passing reads, one-handed, like live dribble whip passes to both corners with both hands. He has really big hands, it looks like, that allow him to be able to do that. I do think that this is kind of the archetype that we're talking about in terms of someone that can be very successful playing off of high level, like superstars in the NBA, right? This is kind of the Drew Holiday archetype. Not to say that he is as good or as talented as Drew, but this is kind of that archetype, right, Mark?
Yeah, I think, again, and this is not me trying to be too low, I'm probably just a little bit lower on the shooting right now. Like, again, I agree with you. The mid-range stuff is legit. It's very real. I just have more questions about, like, he's just never really been a shooter before now. And even then, like, I still think it's, like, the outside shot I feel more questionable on. It's been, like, the pull-up stuff has been interesting.
So let's dig into that really quickly. So the thing that I like about the pull-up stuff is particularly that he can realign himself in midair, and like he can plant with either foot. Essentially, he can plant left foot in front, right foot in front, can get his body realigned. He has a lot of different versatility in terms of the pull-up shot. The shot prep off the catch, I think, is just horrible right now. I don't really know that it's a touch issue. I think it's more of he has really, really bad shot prep and doesn't really get full weight transfer from his lower half enough. Where do you fall on like the actual problems with his shooting?
Yeah, I think that's what I'd agree with. He's just much more comfortable off the catch right now. I mean, not off the catch, off the dribble right now. And I think that's part of, like, he really has not been a massive off-ball threat at Indiana, even with what his numbers imply right
Right.
now, and he doesn't always get guarded like it either. And I think part of what, like, if he were a better athlete, like he's a really good strength athlete, but again, when you're talking about somebody 6'5", 6'6", like I do, like he has had some around the rim issues this year. It's been better than it was in high school, but
Oh, I
his
think he has no chance to be like a high pressure rim player at the NBA
exactly,
level,
which is
basically.
why
Yeah.
I think that's why I almost would probably lean towards I'd rather see him go back to school and work on having some of the shot stuff because I don't think he's going to be a year one impact guy in the NBA. So I could be wrong on it. I want to do a deeper dive into him, but that's just based on my watching Indiana this year. That's where I would be at with him right now. Like I still would consider him probably like a top 30, top 40 prospect pretty comfortably without question right now. But it's just more, I think for him, he might get a lot more value out of going back next year.
Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit further by comparing him to someone. Why is he a worse prospect than Jet Howard?
Oh, I'm not saying he's a worse prospect. I think based on, well, I mean, I would probably consider him a worse prospect based on
Yeah,
what he's actually.
this is a genuine question. Like, I'm not like leading you into something.
Well,
I think that yeah,
I think Jet's so much better as a shooter. Obviously, like I think that goes
agree.
without saying.
Yeah,
He's bigger. Um, I see his role a lot cleaner as a transition into the NBA, just being a secondary wing. Like obviously the
yep.
defense, of course, questions about that, but I think I can see him contributing to an NBA offense like from day one. Like there's a role that I can see with that making sense. I just think with Jalen, like considering right
Okay,
now,
so who is or what side of this is worse? Do you think Jalen's offense is worse or Jet's defense is worse?
it's not even that Jalen's offense is worse. I just think it's so much harder for that to translate for me. Like he's a guy who has to
No,
carry usage right now
yeah, I
for
don't
it to matter.
disagree. Yeah.
Um, which I just think that that's harder to see because I don't know.
I think it's more likely that Jalen Hood-Schifino learns how to like get his shot prep in order over the course of the summer and spring than it is that Jet Howard becomes a good defender in the next 3 years or 2 years even.
Yeah. I'm probably not quite at that. Like I think like again I have my reservations about Jets defense moving forward, but I don't know if I would see Jalen become that good of a shooter that quickly. Um,
I think both are unlikely, don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but I think that I would trust Jalen more at this point. In terms of like learning to shoot as opposed to Jet learning to defend. I just worry, who do you think plays bigger is a real question. I think
Uh,
Jalen plays bigger than he does. I know that Jet is 6'8", and I think Jet shoots bigger than Jalen does. Like Jet uses his size to elevate more as a shooter and get shots up over the top of defenders. But defensively, I think Jalen plays way bigger. Like Jalen's like way more aggressive in covering switches, and Jalen is a way better on-ball defender. He uses his length a little bit more effectively. Like they play, their size works itself out in different ways on the court, I think.
yeah, no, I agree, but I think to me like Jet Howard, if he's playing the four, quote unquote, like I think I can look at that and be like, okay, well that's a lot for a defense to solve. Like obviously, again, like I'm not taking away that the defense is a concern, but like I think for me, it's just easy to look at Jalen and be like, I can see how this can be a problem on offense. And again, like exactly like you're saying, I think it's a two-way street. But with how comfortable I am with where Jet is as a shooter and a guy who can like
Yeah.
make secondary plays, I just think I trust that a little bit more right now.
So I have them very close. I have Jet one slot ahead of Jalen.
Mm.
So I would slightly lean Jet right now. I'm not sure I'm going to come down on that, but that's a thing I've been considering recently because I think that Jet is a much better shooter than Jalen. Like I know that the percentages probably say that Jalen's is higher. Jet's a much better shooter than Jalen Hood-Schifino is. But I think Jalen is better at literally everything else on a basketball court. He's a better defender. He's a better passer. He's a better ball handler. Like has more athleticism. Like I think that he's just better at everything else. How important is shooting? Shooting's incredibly important for a secondary player, but is Jalen's shot so broken that it overwhelms all of that? And I just don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something I definitely need to think about more. Because like exactly what you're saying. Like I still think that, like I'm comfortable with him going in the first round this year. He's one of the guys that makes me think like, okay, if he came back next year and that shot is better, like because like it's not even about money. It's more like having
Yeah,
more
the
reason for a team
development.
to be bought into you. You know, like I think that because again, like all right, well, let's just put it like this. And I'm not trying to be unfair, but it's like think of it like if Jalen's shot is just totally gone next year, like if he's shooting 30%, 31% from three, like how comfortable are teams going to be to allow him to carry usage and do stuff? Like I don't know. I just think it's going to be like if Herb Jones has this year instead of his rookie year, obviously you feel different about it.
Oh,
Like, and I'm not. No, I'm
Herb
not.
is so much more broken from
No,
shooting
yeah, I
from a
know, but
shooting
I'm just saying,
perspective.
like, okay, it's if you have the bad year before the good year, like that's tough. I don't know. It's a good question. It's a really good question because I mean he's done so much that makes you want to be bought in on what this is. I just wonder like okay if Jalen Hood-Schifino is shooting 38% on pull up twos instead of what he is right now, like it's a different equation. And
And
I
all
don't
of
think
this,
oh go
well,
ahead.
all of this is why he's been so inconsistent this year too,
Yeah
right? Like it's so reliant on if that mid-range jumper is falling. If the mid-range jumper is not falling, he's pretty ineffectual as a scorer,
yeah
right? So what you're saying 100% lines up. But yeah, I mean, I think he's going to declare and go in the first if you made me bet.
yeah
I'm not, that comes from no inside knowledge of what he's doing. I'm just saying, like, the way this is going, it feels like he's going to declare and go in the first.
yeah. No, I
And
agree.
I will almost certainly end up with him as a top 20 guy. I would be surprised if I didn't.